Hello and welcome to your background demonstration. So everybody's going to start out here and then you can click through the video for the background that you want to see. So what you need is your chunk of white charcoal, kneaded eraser, I would say your pink eraser. I did the large and medium blender plus my charcoal pencil. And the first thing I want to decide is like, what values do I need where? So for instance, I'm going to go lighter up here, fading down to darker. So over on this side, I'm hoping for like a mid-tone, almost like here, to where her hand would still have contrast. But her hair is really dark back here, so I want to be able to have that edge show. And I want it to be, you know, fairly light back in here. Just erase out a little bit of grid that I still see. Okay, so if possible, if your contour outline is not too detailed, you can use the chunk of charcoal and you're gonna do the side that you kind of pre-sanded off, and I would hold it horizontally. So we're doing the whole flat side. And I would super carefully okay, that's going out into the border. Above, it can go into the border a little bit because the border is going to get cropped off anyway. I'm going to fade that out a little. Okay, so this other side, let me turn it so I can get a good clean edge over here. I'm going to turn it upside down. Okay, so this top part, and I am going to go back with my charcoal pencil, but if it's going to be a lighter or a medium edge, you can just like adjust your pressure. Okay, here's pretty much where it's starting to be kind of medium. So I'm going to give myself a gap that I'm going to be able to fill in with my pencil. Because then I'm going to just adjust with the pencil itself. Sorry, there's a ring there. Okay, so I have the light value back in here. So I'm going to go back and kind of match that line and kind of fade it out where I need to. Which is like a little piece of like light showing through that hair. And then over here I need to kind of come in a little bit more and get a little closer. And then if you do have hairs, like little baby hairs that you want to erase out, you can. Okay, so over here where I left the gap, mind the gap. Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna go upside down so it's a little bit easier for me. Okay, so over here we have eyebrows happening. So I just don't want it to look like an outline. So I'm gonna get pretty close, kind of circular motion, and this is gonna end up being a splotchy texture. So I'm getting even closer with my charcoal pencil and kind of fading out what I have. So getting close, because I want to get rid of that weird dark halo. But I'm still not totally touching, so I'm going to use the blender to get right where I need to be. But I want to lay some value down before using the blender. Kind of fade out that outline. The key is to not have it look outlined. If you go back and have a light outline everywhere, it just flattens everything out. And you just spent so long trying to get it to look real. Okay, so I got really close. So this, I'm just going to use the charcoal chunk. And I'm going to kind of, hold on, let me do something underneath my hand. Okay, there we go. So I can hold it down in place. This is off padding. And so I'm just going to kind of do some randomy. Well, on this side, I do want it to be kind of lighter anyway. Like splotchy, kind of not perfect. So I'm kind of just like tapping, pressing, and kind of fade it out a little bit. I definitely want that side to be a little bit darker. Okay. With the medium blender, so regardless of your background, same process, then, or the small blender, depending on how detailed your contour outline is, I would go back and clean up the edge as best you can. So I'm going to blend that edge all the way around. I'm going to get like in the areas that I didn't. If you accidentally get it inside, obviously erase it out, but okay, here's where I'm using my blender to get right up to the edge where I need it to be. So I'm trying not to use a lot of pressure because I still want this area to be a little bit darker. But I'm able to get like a pretty clean edge. Fix it up a little bit. So that tiny little line is okay. I don't want to mess up the hand, so just try to get as close as you can without messing up what's there. Okay, so then once the edge is done, because I do want this to be kind of splotchy and I'm gonna blend and erase out some layers, I'm gonna kind of use the whole side of this blender, the top part, and I'm just gonna tap blend, like touch blend. So then I'm gonna keep some of that texture of the paper showing. Like, I do want it to definitely be, since her face does look, you know, pretty smooth, I do want like a different kind of texture happening. We just don't want it to be that obvious. Kind of dull that down. So this is called Splotchy Random. So take your time, do a good first layer, just like with anything else. And if you don't want to do this one, fast forward through and find one that you like to do. They all kind of start the same. I just wanted to show you bigger. Okay, so then for the Splotchy Random, I want to bring back some of the dark. So I'm going to form, because I kind of want it to stay somewhat angular. So I'm going to form like a little square with my kneaded eraser. And I'm going to use it to kind of tap and lift back out. So let me reform my, oh, let me clean my kneaded eraser, okay? Because remember, it's gonna pick up the white, so. Turn this so my arm is comfortable. And so I also did this because I could still see my grid a little bit. I wanted it to cover that part. So then I would try my pink eraser as well. Just, you're gonna be really careful not to get like eraser marks on the, so I'm gonna kind of lift out a little bit along that edge. And you can kind of clean the eraser off the side. Like here, it looks a little too perfect, a little too halo-ish. Okay, over here, I do want it to be slightly darker. So I'm gonna pull back out. And of course you'll get the eraser stuff off before taking your final picture. And then we can try blending with your finger a little bit. So I feel like it's a little too intense. It distracts from her. I mean, I like it, but it's like, ooh, that's a lot. It's a lot of texture happening. So I'm gonna go back with my finger. And that does dull it down because your finger picks up some of the charcoal, which is pretty much why we didn't ever use our fingers before. Or maybe some of you did. Maybe that's the problem. Okay, so I feel like that's better, but I think I'm gonna do a whole nother layer. Okay, so definitely wash your hands before touching your picture. I feel like this part down here looks haloed, like you can still see my outline. So let me see if I can move the camera down. Okay, there we go. Like this halo effect is what I want to get rid of. So I'm going to go back. Just like kind of pulling away from the halo effect. Try to fade that in a little bit more. And then I do think I'm going to go a little bit, another layer back here. So starting from the edge and kind of pulling away. Okay, so, well, that looks much more intense on the screen than it does in person. But this I would call splotchy random. Notice how it's darker on the back of our hair. Or sorry, the back of her hair is darker, so it's a lighter background. And then over here I had a lot of light values, so I stayed fairly medium and then erased out some darks. So you would start out the same way for all of them. Okay, the next one is going to be splotchy, but like with a shape to it. So if you're like, nope, I want to see hatching or cross hatching, it all starts out the same, so you can fast forward through. Okay, so let me move the camera down a little bit. Okay, so just like I started in this video, if you have a more detailed contour outline, you are going to have to, so I'm just trying not to press very hard. You are going to have to actually sit and outline it, and then I would grab that outline, match it, fade it out. So you can see all the little jaggedy hairs. Okay, then fade out. Definitely sharpen your pencil before doing this. So then you'll decide, I mean, can you have an area that has range of value, or do you want your background to all be like kind of the same value? Okay, so for a lot of detail you have to do that. Then for less detail, you're gonna go back and I would try to match if you can. So let's see, I'm gonna fade down. Okay, so turn it so your arm is comfortable. Let's say I'm fading up. So if you want it more like to have a shape, then I would use this as the shape. Or, I mean, you can draw it, like, let's say you want it to be like swirly kind of dotted. So I'll do two shapes. I'll do swirly dotted over here and more rectangular over here. So I kind of like definitely kind of, so I'm definitely pressing like a little more, more towards the outline. So the idea is that you're kind of random and then you add back in. Okay, so let's say I wanted to fade that down a little. Fill it in a little. Let's say you wanted more like, you know, when they have like a camera that's the background's not in focus and it has like a little circles. So you could kind of like have some be lighter, some be darker. And you kind of build that up. So I kind of start out that way. Okay, so then of course, a small blend, I'm not gonna blend this whole thing because you would have already watched the very beginning of the last one. So you're gonna blend, 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 blend all the way around. And then for something like this one, I would actually use my bigger blender. So blend to get right up to the edge. Now erase out where you got blender marks, etc. Small blender all along the edge. Okay, so then I would go in the same direction, like kind of same. So I would touch blend, but then I kind of touch in the negative space too. So you can just go like that if you want to, or you can have it look like a more layered kind of look. Either way, you're going to layer a little bit more. So if this is faster for you and you like it, do this. Okay, so then I would build up another layer. Oh, not that side. Oops, no wonder. Especially like close to the halo, because we want to get rid of that. Still trying to keep the shapes a little bit. I'm kind of like specifically pressing. And you could use your finger, or if you want it to be fairly light and still kind of have some of that be visible, then I would go back over it. I feel like those lines are a little distracting, so pull that up a little bit. but I would only blend in like one direction, so you're kind of keeping the shape. And then it looks a little more organized and less random. And if you feel like you want to still go back, I'd probably use one of the ends of the pink eraser, and you can kind of like erase back in. Like get close and pull away so we lose the halo effect. Actually, I like that a lot better. And then if you're like, ooh, I don't know, you could just blend over it a little bit with your finger or the big blender. I feel like that with the erasing out looks a little more sophisticated. It gives it more range of value. It kind of depends on what value you need. Like maybe you don't erase as much out and you just erase more where you just want the range of value. So now you have all those little eraser marks. I would use tissue or toilet paper to gently kind of brush off. So if you wanted more circles, then you have to blend kind of like in that direction. So I kind of blend, 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 blend. Blend the circles. But then I kind of fade out from them. And I try to make them different sizes. I didn't do such a good job of that. Okay, so I feel like what makes those backgrounds kind of cool is areas that are lighter and appear to come closer. So I wouldn't do it like right above the head, and I wouldn't do it in any particular order. Maybe I would do one over here, kind of. Less pressure. So it looks like some are further away, some are closer. And then with the pencil top eraser or the kneaded eraser, whatever you have more control with, I would go back in, and you could do all kinds of stuff with this, but you could kind of erase. Erase back out and kind of redefine. But if that's too overpowering, because I feel like now it's getting kind of detailed. The whole point is to just add a little bit to your drawing and not have, you know, the grid show essentially. I mean, I kind of like that actually. But if you're like, oh no, well then I just take your finger, gently go over it. It'll dull it down. And if you're like, I really hate that, that looks terrible, then just go back over it. But I kind of liked how it was 2 steps ago. So you can make it more subtle, and maybe like then I would still kind of draw back in. And then it's far darker and more subtle. So that's kind of like splotchy with a shape to it, but again, it's still layering. All right, so now let's do scumbling. So if you have like straight hair, your drawing maybe is not that interesting, or you have a facial expression that's like a little more extreme, then I would say scumbling would work. So I'm going to use I'm going to go much lighter than her hair. Use the side of my charcoal to get the contour outline. When I show you this, I'm hesitant because I don't want the weird halos. We are not divine. Okay, let me go this way. Okay, so this is gonna be scumbling. This is how I would start it. I would start with the charcoal chunk, and you're gonna kind of do some wavy, some angular. Okay, so over here, if I wanted to fade it out, then I would kind of lighten my pressure. And it could be smaller. Like, I feel like this is kind of big, so it's gonna really distract from her. But I am gonna layer with some charcoal pencil anyway. Okay, obviously, small blender or medium blender all the way around. And you wanna get it to where you're probably really not gonna touch that side, except for maybe with the charcoal pencil. So you wanna kind of fade out a little bit. Okay. So the next blending part, you can do a couple different ways. You can totally blend over everything, or you can blend in the scumbly kind of motion. I'm going to do a whole layer of blending just to kind of dull it down because I feel like it's way too distracting right now. Trying to pull some of that halo out as well. Okay, so, and we're definitely have to do layers, especially if you can see your grid. So I am doing circular motion just really fast, but I'm doing like big oval kind of ovally circles. Okay, then with the pencil eraser, make sure it's sharpened. We're gonna go back and do scumbling with the pencil eraser. And I would pull right away from the edge, so make sure there's some scumbling. So some angular, some circular, kind of, like go a little crazy. So it doesn't look so like circular, circular, circular. You want some angular pointy, so you have variety. Hold on, let me sharpen my pencil eraser again. Dude, mine has like the wood all up on one side, so I keep sharpening it and sharpening it. It's so annoying. So annoying when they're so expensive. Like, make them right, people. So even just in the part that I blended over and didn't necessarily have anything, you're still gonna do some scumbling in that area. Okay, so at this point I would take a look from far away, like the fact that this is really distracting up there. So with charcoal pencil, I'm gonna try to maintain, I'm gonna want it to fade, but I wanna maintain like some kind of similar size. So I'm gonna start along her edge and then kind of fade out. That's where you can kind of see some of the angular and angular and curvy kind of motion. Okay, so I feel like fading out is a little bit more difficult, so let me show you that part. We'll go over on this side. So you do that all over on this side, okay. So here, I'm gonna scumble a little bit more, and then I'm going to lighten my pressure by putting my hand at the back of the pencil. So more towards the front of the pencil. And I'm going to press harder in some spots so I have like range of value. Okay, here. So kind of smaller. Fading out. So I would do at least like 2 more layers of this. So smaller to fade in that halo. And then, so you can blend with your fingers if you want. Let me fill in some small ones in here. Or you can use the blender. So I know I'm gonna do a whole layer of scumbling again. So I'm actually gonna just kind of gently, like not pressing very hard, blend over just to kind of dull it down. Okay, so I'm gonna do another layer with the pencil top eraser to pull back in some of the dark values. And I probably blend over because I don't want this to get much lighter, but you could do a whole nother layer with the charcoal pencil, especially if you have a large area of negative space. So I'll do a little bit more like out here, just a little. And I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna start from the edge and work my way in. So I wanna keep it a little bit lighter as I work my way in. So you can always blend over that, or at this point you're like, oh, I kind of like this. Just make sure it's kind of subtle. And you'll get little pieces from this, which is what the paintbrush is for, but I do prefer just doing some tissue or toilet paper. So that is more of like what scumbling should kind of look like. Kind of. It's like it needs to be dulled down over here. The key is that we don't see like a total outline. So you always want to be fading your outline in. So I would actually do one more layer and then not blend. And I would hold my pencil towards the end and just kind of like fade out that halo effect. And kind of fill in some gaps. And then I wouldn't blend that. I would just leave it like it is. So there is a different version of scumbling. Okay, I'm gonna do hatching and then cross hatching because I feel like your guys' idea of hatching is different than mine. All right, so same thing. You wanna get like a really good edge with the charcoal pencil, especially if you have a complex edge like this one. But once you have that part, then you can kind of come back in with the charcoal chunk. I'm gonna kind of, actually I should do this with charcoal pencil. I apologize. Oh, it's right there, right in front of me. So definitely get like a line, but then fade out so that the charcoal chunk has something to blend onto. Okay, so let's say I wanted this side to be darker. Well, then I'm going to lessen my pressure, but I still, if your hair is dark, you still need like a contour edge that shows. So I'm just going to lighten my pressure. And then we'll do a little bit more like erasing. Okay, so let's say I'm gonna do vertical hatching. So I'm gonna start out with this chunk. And if you needed to, like if you want it to be really, really vertical, I honestly would probably take your ruler and give yourself some guidelines. Like, okay, that's a vertical line, vertical line. Just line it up with the other part of the ruler. Vertical line, vertical line, vertical line, vertical line. Or horizontal, or diagonal, just to give you guidelines to follow so that it doesn't look, you know, messed up. All right. So this is for vertical hatching, but you can do it any direction that you would want to. So I'm gonna go over my lines, and then I'm gonna get right up next to the hair as best I can. Of course, this is just the first layer. And so I haven't blended yet because when I blend that halo effect, I want it to blend in with what I have for the lines. So I'm going to turn it upside down. Okay. So when I blend, I'm going to blend a little bit. Actually, I would use the smaller blender to get a good clean edge. But once I've done that part, then from there, I'm gonna pull away and pull up into the hatching. And I'll blend in the direction. And then we're gonna fix that in the next layer for sure. So blend along the edge, but then fade up. I'd actually blend along the edge, especially when we get over here. Trying to get like an all over value and kind of dull down the lines, because again, it's not meant to overpower your portrait and we don't want it to. You should be the focus. Okay. So you can use I recommend kneaded eraser for this part, but I'm going to pinch it and make a sharp edge, like a little point. And I'm going to start, and remember you have to re-pinch it and re-pinch it. So I'm going to go back and kind of pull away from the face or hair or hand or whatever it might be. So I feel like the kneaded eraser does a better job of pulling out some fine line, but if you feel like the pencil top eraser is a little bit easier, feel free. So I'm going to go over the whole thing with the kneaded eraser, and then I probably would, I gotta sharpen my pencil top eraser again. Hold on. I would probably use the pencil top eraser, especially around the contour edge. So like, I definitely get like right up to the edge on some of them, so that then you're getting rid of this ugly part right there. So I kind of go with like where there already is, and then you might have to go back and like erase out in that darker edge or in that hair. Okay, so I'm going to focus on this side because I don't want to, you guys don't need to watch that whole entire thing. All right. So with pencil, then I would go right up to the edge Do some long, some short, and you want to kind of fill in some gaps. But you still want it to look like line. So you might have to sharpen occasionally. So you do that over everywhere. Be really careful to flick away. Oh, I just got some in the hair. Okay, so then I would do a layer of blending in the direction. Get the smaller blender to go right up to the edge. And if you get two good first layers, the next layers are just adjusting and refining a little. Okay, I'm gonna do once more blending. Okay, kneaded eraser. So this is where, like, if you wanted to fade in, then I could go back and erase out a lot more with my kneaded eraser and fade in some darker value. But in general, especially like in here, I'm losing my hatching. It's been blended over. Then I want to keep making my kneaded eraser pointed. And I might have to go back and clean up inside that contour edge. So I would do a whole nother layer of erasing. And I would make sure I'm cleaning my kneaded eraser. Like, do a good job of this. Because really your back, if you have a lot of negative space, your background can make or break your drawing. Like, it either looks really good or not. No pressure. Okay, so where I've erased, I would erase everywhere. Then I would gently kind of come back and decide like where I want, like here it looks kind of blobby. So I'm gonna put back in some gentle kind of lines back in. So we're looking for more of like this effect for the hatching. That goes in one direction. It could go horizontal, it could go diagonal, it can be vertical, it can be, you know, slightly diagonal, but I would definitely use the ruler. Like if you're gonna go diagonal, use the ruler to give yourself some guidelines, otherwise it ends up looking like it might start out one direction, it kind of ends in another direction. All right, so there's that for you. The last one is cross hatching. So I'll actually start out this one. I'm gonna do cross hatching. I'm gonna just do this side because this is enough to see. Okay, so if you have complex hair, really take some time and get a good contour outline, and then I'm gonna fade it out. Okay, where you get more into like where the face and stuff is, where you have cleaner contour edges, then you can, oh, that's not the side. Okay, there we go. Then you can come back and refine. And I would still probably, okay. So I want this to kind of fade out. So I'm gonna start with the chunk, and I'm gonna do like my first layer of, I'm gonna try vertical. So I'm really trying to fade up and then down, do a couple big long ones. And you could use your ruler if it's a lot of background. Like I'd probably use my ruler and make like, okay, here's a guideline for a vertical line. Here's another guideline. But we're gonna do a lot of cross hatching, so it's not that important unless you really like meticulous hatching lines. Okay, so that's just to get your first layer kind of on there. Okay, then I would do the next layer in the total opposite direction. So some long, some short. So I kind of like do a couple long, couple short, go back in and kind of fill it in a little. And in the last layer, actually after we blend this one, we're gonna start to fade out a little bit. Like what if you don't, suddenly I'm British. What if you don't want the whole background to be the same value? So take your time, get a good first and second layer, and then we'll do a third layer too, so it kind of blends in. Okay, this looks bad. It always looks bad in the beginning. So I'm going to probably use the small blender for sure around the contour edge, especially like up in between little hairs. You don't want to lose that detail. Okay, all right, then I don't have to be so concerned about the edge with my larger blender. And even if I want this area to be lighter, I'm still gonna, I'm sorry, darker. I'm still going to blend over it. Okay, so now I'm gonna do my third direction. I always do at least 3 for cross hatching because it doesn't look good, obviously, with just 2. This time it's gonna go diagonal. I'm gonna use my charcoal pencil, just sharpened it. Okay, so I'm gonna go right up to the edge. So we're kind of sweeping motions. Like I am holding my pencil in the middle. So I have some control, but I don't need that much pressure. And out here I am like trying to fade out a little bit. So I am applying a little bit more pressure to fade out that halo. So now it's kind of blending in. So I would say this is our, third layer. So we're gonna do at least like 2 to 3 more, I would say. So again, pressing a little harder when I get right up to the edge of the halo effect, and then lightening up my pressure and pulling away. And this is like probably the only layer you'll really add a ton of charcoal in, the first one and then this one. The rest is going to be like erasing out a little bit. We'll do another round of blending and then a thin kind of top layer to redefine. Okay. Blend, 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 blend. Be careful of my edge. So for this next part, you can either use kneaded eraser, or like if you like the pinching of it, or maybe you just like the kneaded eraser, or you can use pencil top eraser. Definitely sharpen pencil top eraser and cat one that like the wood just keeps so annoying. Okay, so I'm gonna start in my original direction, so vertical. So I'm gonna put vertical back in. So getting right up to the edge, pulling away. So even though it's vertical, I'm not like doing long strokes. It's like sweeping motion. It allows for some more variety. You know, this is a really good one if you can really see your grid, because the lines just kind of blend in. So I would try the pencil top eraser at least in one layer so you have variety of thickness in line. And then I did get inside where the hair, where I didn't want to. Okay, so that was the vertical. Then I'm going to do horizontal, erasing out. Keep pinching. Or just use the pencil top eraser. So I think I'm going to switch just so it's faster to show you guys. But whatever you like better. I mean, I personally like the kneaded eraser better, but, you know, for the sake of time. I like it because it has like thinner, finer line. But, you know, whatever. So if I needed it to fade out, I would definitely just do like a little bit more erasing in that area. So if I wanted this area to fade out a little bit more. Excuse me. So just kind of erase out a little bit more. I feel like the erasing might be easier to fade. Okay, sorry, I just want to get to the last layer. I mean, this looks awesome when you guys are done, so take your time and do like a good job. Okay, so then I would do my diagonal. So be far more precise when you get close to you, and then pull away. So again, listen to some music, listen to a movie you've seen a million times and you love. Okay, now, if you like that, leave it. That looks good. Very woven, it's not overpowering, you know, contrast, it'll be contrasting well with this hair. If you don't love it, then I would do a whole nother layer and blend and then erase, etc. Actually, let me just do horizontal. I feel like I just want to. So I'm going to super subtly, I'm really more concerned with trying to fade in this halo effect. So remember, turn your paper so your hand is comfortable. So I'm doing like some short, some long to fade that out, and then kind of some sweeping ones over that. But I am fading out towards the edges. And you can go into your border a little bit. And it's better to not have like a weird edge anyway. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna do diagonal slightly. And I would not blend this unless you want to do more layers. Like unless it doesn't look as good as this one, then you might want to like blend over and erase again. or you should. Let's see how many people actually do that. So I just leave it like that. Although really it's just for me, I do a whole nother round of erasing and then a whole nother round of lines, but good enough for what we need to learn with the layering. Of course, if you want to fade it out more, like let's say you want this area to fade out, then, you know, pull back out and then kind of fade in. Do it in multiple directions. And if all else fails, you're like, this looks terrible. Well, maybe you want to put scumbling on top of it, or like the splotchy texture on top of it. So you can layer any and all of these textures. Okay, good luck.